He was a millionaire who had everything but the truth. But a woman from his past, 3 boys with his eyes, and one hidden secret that could ruin everything. But what he did next changed everything. Before we start, leave a comment and indicate which city you are sharing from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. I never believed in fate. I believed in contracts, in concrete, in the weight of numbers. That's how I built my company, Ada Biodevelopments, from the ground up. From the time I was 22 and fresh off the plane from London with a borrowed suit and 3 architectural sketches in my laptop, I didn't stop. Couldn't stop. Until the day I saw her again. It was just before sunset, and Lagos was glowing in that way it does before everything sinks into chaos. Warm light filtering through haze, the smell of street food and diesel, voices of children playing mixed with the distant honking of impatient drivers. I should have been in a boardroom or at a cocktail reception, not crouched behind a weathered wall in a faded neighborhood where none of my friends would be caught dead. But something made me stop. Something pulled me in. Her laugh. And then I saw them. 3 identical boys, maybe 6 or 7 years old, running into the arms of a woman in a faded Ankara dress and waitress cap. She bent to hug them, and something inside me snapped. Each of those boys had a small crescent-shaped birthmark on the inside of their left wrist. My birthmark. My grandfather's. My father's. Mine. And then I saw her face. Eliana. I said her name before I even realized it. Eliana. She turned like she'd been struck. Her jaw tightened, and she didn't smile. Go inside, she whispered to the boys. They obeyed. No questions. Then she turned to me, arms crossed over her chest like armor. What do you want, Jerry? I couldn't speak for a moment. My throat closed up. You disappeared, she said, voice steady but shaking. You left me. You ruined my life. And now you're here watching my sons like a thief? My knees buckled. I dropped to the dirt. I didn't abandon you. My father sent me out of the country that same week. I thought I'd come back in time, but I lost your number. When I returned, you were gone. She didn't move. I searched for you, Eliana. I went to your house. The guards turned me away. I didn't know you were pregnant. I didn't know anything. Her arms stayed crossed, but her lip trembled. They're mine, aren't they? She didn't hesitate. Yes. A silence settled between us that felt heavier than anything I'd ever carried in my life. I don't know how long I knelt there before I finally said, let me be a father to them, please. Eliana didn't soften, but she opened the door behind her and said, you can visit, that's all. But if you hurt them like you hurt me, I'll make sure the whole world hears about it. That was how it began. The man who disappeared walked back into her life, this time with his hands open and his heart full of guilt. But none of us knew then that the past I was trying to make right was about to unravel in a way no one could have seen coming. You think the hardest part is finding out you have kids. It's not. The hardest part is watching them flinch when you try to hug them. The hardest part is realizing someone else earned the title dad. And it wasn't you. It had been 3 days since Eliana let me visit. 3 days since I stood in that cramped, 2-room apartment with peeling paint and a broken fan, watching 3 boys fight over who got to drink from the cold bottle of Fanta. Their names were Micah, Elijah, and Jordan. Mine was just the visitor. They didn't know me. I wasn't part of bedtime stories or scraped knee memories. I was the rich man in clean shoes who brought pizza and a football and didn't know how to braid hair or warm pap properly. I could build a hotel in 2 weeks, but I couldn't tell my own sons apart. Eliana sat across from me on a frayed couch, arms folded. She didn't smile much. She watched me like I was a ticking bomb, and honestly, I didn't blame her. You think money fixes this? She asked once. No, I said quietly, but it might make it easier. For them. For you. She looked me dead in the eye. They don't need easier. They need real. By the 2nd week, I learned their routines. Jordan was the oldest by 2 minutes and acted like it. Elijah was shy until he trusted you. And Micah. Micah would probably own a company like mine by age 15 if someone didn't stop him. I'd never seen so much joy inside such struggle. Eliana worked 2 jobs. Waitress during the day, cleaning offices at night. She came home with blisters and back pain, but she never complained. Never. And one night, as I watched her tuck in all 3 boys, I asked the question that had been haunting me. Why didn't you tell me? Her hand froze mid-stroke over Elijah's curls. She turned slowly, eyes glossy. I wrote you letters. Every month. For the first year. She stood, walked to a drawer, and pulled out a stack of faded envelopes. All unopened. All marked with my name. Your father intercepted them. My gut turned. I should have known. He never liked her. Said she was beneath me. That she was a phase. She was never a phase. She was the only real thing I had. Later that night, Eliana sat with me on the small front steps. The kids were asleep. Rain tapped gently against the tin roof above us. I don't want your charity, she said. I want your presence. If you're serious, prove it. I am. Then we're not doing this part-time. You want to be their father? You do school runs, doctor visits. You help with homework. You sit with them when they cry. I nodded. Anything. She looked away. And don't fall in love with me again unless you're ready to stay. What none of us saw coming was that someone was watching. From a distance. Someone who remembered my last name. Who knew what I'd inherited when my father died. Someone who wanted revenge. And they weren't afraid to go after the only thing I truly cared about anymore. My family. People think the scariest sound is a gunshot. But I'll tell you the truth. It's the silence after someone says, I can't find them. That night started like any other. Micah had fallen asleep with a crayon still in his hand. Elijah was curled up on the couch with a book twice his age. And Jordan, the oldest, had insisted on staying up to watch a late football match with me. Eliana had already left for her night shift. I just stepped into the kitchen to warm some jollof rice when the power cut. Total darkness. I reached for my phone, turned on the flashlight, and headed back toward the living room. But the door was open, wide open, and Jordan was gone. Jordan! I shouted his name so loud my voice cracked. I ran outside barefoot, my suit pants dragging through the dust. Neighbors opened doors. Heads peeked through windows. I searched alleys, pounded on doors. Nothing. Eliana's voice came through the phone like a blade. What do you mean he's not there? I couldn't speak. I just stood there in the middle of the street, heart pounding, hands shaking, hearing her scream through the speaker. I had one job, protect them. And I failed. 2 hours later, the police arrived. One officer looked at me like I was wasting his time. He probably wandered off. Kids do that. He's 7, I growled. He doesn't wander anywhere. The other one was more sympathetic. Any threats? Enemies? I hesitated. There was one name, one man, my father's cousin, Franklin Mendez. He'd always resented me, said I didn't deserve the family business, said I wasted my fortune on weak things. Charity, housing projects, women like Eliana. The last time I saw him, he whispered in my ear, soft men don't die. They lose everything first. By dawn, no word had come. Eliana collapsed on the couch when she got home, still in her waitress uniform, soaked from rain, eyes red from crying. And I sat there beside her, feeling more helpless than I'd ever felt in my life. This is my fault, she whispered. No, I said. She looked at me. You brought attention. You brought your name, your face, your wealth. I wanted to defend myself, but she was right. I had opened a door, and someone had walked through it. At noon, a message came. No number, no name, just a photo. Jordan, blindfolded, crying. A man's hand gripping his shoulder. Under it, if you want him back, walk away from Eliana. Or the next photo will be a funeral invitation. It was 12:07 p.m. when the message came. By 12:10, I had traced the burner phone to a cell tower 2 neighborhoods away. By 12:15, I had 6 private security agents in unmarked cars patrolling the radius. But none of that mattered because by 12:30, another message came. We know where your money sleeps, but your son? He's wide awake. Attached was a voice recording. Jordan's voice, crying, "Please, I want my mom. I want to go home." That broke something in me. Not even prison had made me feel that kind of rage. Yes, prison. I did a 6-month stint in my 20s. Securities violation. My father made it disappear like he always did. But this time, no money could undo what had been done. This was personal. And someone wanted to make it very clear. Either I gave up Eliana and the kids, or I gave up Jordan. "You're not seriously considering their terms," Eliana said. She hadn't slept. Her hands were trembling as she poured tea neither of us would drink. "They want you out," she whispered. "They want me alone. They think if they separate us, they win." I nodded. "That's the plan." "So what are you going to do?" I looked her in the eyes. "I'm going to pretend to lose." That night, I posted an announcement on social media. It read like a classic PR statement. "After much reflection, I've decided to focus solely on my company and step away from all personal commitments for the foreseeable future." I knew Franklin would see it. He was too vain not to be watching. An hour later, the final message arrived. "Good choice. You'll find him at the abandoned market in Surulere. Come alone." I left Eliana crying in the hallway. "I'm coming back with him," I said. "Or I'm not coming back at all." She didn't speak, but she kissed my cheek. Soft, slow, the way she used to, before we became ghosts in each other's lives. The Surulere market was pitch black by the time I arrived. Rats scattered under my feet. Shattered glass crunched beneath my boots. Then I saw him, Jordan, alone, kneeling near a pillar, blindfold still on, hands tied but unharmed. "Jordan!" I shouted. But as I ran, I heard footsteps behind me. For maybe 5 men. Then a voice. "Well, well, the prodigal father returns." Franklin stepped from the shadows, dressed like a politician. Tailored suit, smug as ever. "I knew you couldn't resist. You always did let emotions ruin you." I stood still, hands up, heart pounding. "He's a kid. Let him go." "Oh, I will," he said. "But first, a deal. You walk away. From Eliana. From the kids. You disappear. Or next time we won't be so gentle." "And what do you get?" "Everything. The board. The company. Your empire." I laughed bitterly. "You're willing to terrorize a child over a board seat?" He stepped closer. "I don't need you dead, Jerry. I just need you erased." I reached slowly into my jacket and pulled out my phone. Franklin smirked. "Calling backup?" "No," I said. "Recording everything." His face dropped. "You just confessed to kidnapping a child. You're done." Sirens wailed in the distance. I had called Ethan, my lawyer and oldest friend, right before walking in. He was tracking the call the whole time. Within moments, police flooded the alley. Franklin tried to run, got tackled face first into the mud. I ran to Jordan, untying him as he sobbed into my arms. "Daddy," he whispered for the first time. "Yeah, buddy," I choked out. "Daddy's here." There are 2 kinds of silence in this world. The kind that soothes, and the kind that screams. The silence in Eliana's kitchen that morning screamed. Jordan was asleep in the next room. Curled against a stuffed lion, we bought him on the way home from the hospital. He hadn't spoken much since. Just held my hand like a lifeline, refusing to let go even in his dreams. Eliana sat across from me, her eyes sunken but fierce. A mother lion in human form. Her voice was low. "You said it was over." "It is," I said. "He's in custody." She stared through me. "But is it over?" I hesitated. "No, it's just beginning." The press was already circling like sharks. A billionaire's secret family. Love, lies, and a hostile takeover. Somehow, someone had leaked everything: Jordan, Franklin's arrest, even my visits to Eliana's flat. Eliana's face was on 3 blogs by 9 a.m. By noon, she was trending. "Who leaked it?" she asked. My guess? Someone on Franklin's legal team, trying to spin the story before we do. She stood, pacing. "My kids. They're just children." "I know," I said. That's why we're not hiding anymore. She turned sharply. What does that mean? I pulled out a manila folder and slid it across the table. Adoption papers, I said. And a deed. She opened it slowly. You want to adopt them? I want them to be mine in every way. Her hand trembled. And the deed. I smiled softly. To a house. On Victoria Island. With a school 5 minutes away. And a garden the boys can destroy every weekend. She didn't cry. Eliana never cried when you expected her to. She just folded the papers back and whispered, Are you sure you're ready for this? Not even close, I said. But I'm not leaving again. Ever. The next few weeks were a blur. I moved them into the new house. I quit 2 major projects. I sold my secondary residence in Dubai just to make space in my life that could never be filled by luxury again. I didn't want a bachelor life anymore. I wanted family dinners, bedtime stories, a woman who kissed me with her eyes open, not because she had to, but because she wanted to. And one night, after the boys had fallen asleep, Eliana stood in the doorway of our new kitchen in nothing but one of my old dress shirts and said the one thing I never thought I'd hear again. Come to bed, Jerry. But just when life started to feel full, the knock came. 3 sharp raps on the front door. A man in a dark suit. 2 more behind him. They weren't police. They were lawyers. And they had documents in hand. One of the boys wasn't mine. At least that's what the papers claimed. A paternity challenge, filed anonymously. But I already knew who sent them. They handed me the papers like they were serving coffee. This is a court-issued request, the lead attorney said. You have 14 days to comply with the DNA testing order, or the court may assume default judgment. He said it politely, but it still felt like someone punched me in the gut. Eliana stood behind me, barefoot, a towel still wrapped around her hair. She didn't speak. Not yet. I read the name at the top of the filing. Franklin Mendez. He was in jail but clearly still pulling strings. The man who tried to kidnap my son now wanted to challenge if he was mine at all. Later that night, after the boys were asleep, Eliana finally spoke. Do you want to do the test? I looked at her for a long time. I don't need it, I said. But I'll do it for their protection. She nodded, staring at the floor. And if it says one of them isn't yours? Then it's wrong. She raised her eyes to mine. Jerry, I need to tell you something. Her voice was shaking now. Back then, after you disappeared, I was alone. I was angry. And for a very brief time, just a few weeks, I tried to move on. I was confused. One of them might not be yours. The words dropped like bricks between us. But I didn't lie to you, she added. I just didn't know for sure. I raised all 3 as yours. Loved them the same. I still do. I stepped closer. Eliana, I don't care what the test says. Those boys are mine. All of them. She cried then. For the first time in front of me. She didn't sob. Just let the tears fall silently onto my shirt as I held her. 2 days later, we took the tests. Buccal swabs. Quick. Cold. Final. The lab technician gave me a tight smile. You'll have results in 5 days, sir. But on the 4th day, someone hacked the system. An anonymous source posted the results online before we even saw them ourselves. It went viral within hours. Millionaire fathered twins, but 3rd child is not his. Micah, the firecracker, the future CEO in sneakers. Not mine by blood. But that didn't change anything. What did change was the whispering. A school drop-off. At the supermarket. Even at my office, people suddenly spoke to me like I was fragile. Like I'd been deceived. Eliana wanted to move away. I'll leave, she said. I'll take them. You don't deserve this circus. I stopped her with one hand on her suitcase. You run now, we teach the boys that love is conditional. That blood matters more than loyalty. I won't let them learn that from us. She looked at me, tears brimming again. So we stay. We fight, I said. But Franklin's plan wasn't over. He didn't want truth. He wanted shame. He filed for emergency guardianship, claiming I was unfit to care for children that weren't mine. Even from jail, he was trying to erase me from their lives. And I realized something chilling. If I lost the next court hearing, I could lose Micah. Forever. There's something humiliating about proving you're a good father in front of strangers. Worse when one of those strangers is trying to steal your child. The courtroom was cold. Too white. Too quiet. Eliana sat on my left, holding Jordan's hand. Elijah leaned into her shoulder. Micah sat beside me, swinging his legs under the bench, too young to understand the war happening around him, but old enough to feel it in his bones. The judge, a stern woman with gray eyes, called the hearing to order. And then they let Franklin speak. Jailed, chained at the wrists, but somehow still smug. He said Eliana had deceived me, that she'd tried to trap a billionaire. He said I was emotionally compromised and clearly incapable of rational guardianship. He said Micah deserved to be raised by his real blood, not by lies and pity. I stood slowly. The judge nodded for me to speak. My name is Jerry Duka. I built a company from nothing. I lost a father who tried to control my life and found 3 sons who taught me how to live again. Yes, one of them isn't mine by DNA. But DNA never rocked a sick child to sleep. DNA never sat through a school recital. DNA never wiped tears or built Lego castles at midnight. Love did. I did. Micah is mine in every way that matters. The courtroom was silent. Even Franklin didn't smirk anymore. Then the judge leaned forward. Does Micah know? I turned to my son. He looked up at me, curious. I knelt down, face level with his. Micah, I whispered. You know I love you, right? He nodded, confused. Even if someone told you that I'm not your real dad, would you still want me to be your daddy? He looked at me, then at Eliana, then back at me, and said the words I'll carry to my grave. You're the only daddy I want. The judge slammed the gavel. Case dismissed. Full guardianship remains with Mr. Duka and Ms. Eliana. The court sees no reason to separate this family. We won. But the world outside didn't care. Reporters ambushed our house for days. Blogs ran hit pieces about Eliana's past. My board started asking questions. So I did the only thing I could think of to shut it all down. I called a press conference. And I didn't hide. I stood on that stage and told the world, yes, one of my sons was born from another man. But he is still my son. My family may be unconventional. It may not fit your headlines. But I will burn this company to the ground before I let it take precedence over the people I love. The crowd was dead silent. Then someone clapped. Then more. And suddenly, the noise that used to haunt me, judgment, whispers, gossip, turned into something else. Support, respect, even admiration. Eliana watched from the side stage, her hand over her mouth, crying silently. Later that night, I kissed her forehead and said, let's give the boys our name. I never believed in fairy tales, not even as a kid. But standing under that open-air tent, dressed in an off-white suit, my sons beside me in matching tuxedos, and Eliana walking toward me in a long ivory dress with no veil, just her radiant and real, I thought maybe fairy tales weren't fiction. Maybe they were just rare, too rare, because minutes before the ceremony we almost didn't make it. It started with a letter slipped under our door the morning of the wedding. No return address, no stamp, just a single line in blocky handwriting. You marry her today, and I will destroy everything. First I laughed. We'd already faced worse. Franklin was behind bars. The press had calmed down. The boys were safe. But Eliana didn't laugh. I've seen this before, she said. You don't grow up scraping through street markets without learning the scent of danger. This isn't a joke. We alerted security, pushed the wedding start time earlier, and doubled the guards at the entrance. But I could see it in her eyes. She wasn't afraid for herself. She was afraid for me, for the boys, for the life we'd finally started to believe we deserved. 30 minutes before the ceremony, Micah tripped in the dressing room and cracked his front tooth on the corner of the sink. Blood, tears, panic. Elijah started crying too, thinking something terrible had happened. Jordan tried to help but got elbowed in the nose. Now all three were screaming. I should have lost it. I should have said, "Forget this. Postpone the wedding. We're cursed." Instead, Eliana walked in with a calm I didn't know she had. She wiped their tears, dabbed the blood, whispered something to Micah I didn't hear, and in 5 minutes they were smiling again. Later, when I asked her what she said, she shrugged. I reminded him that even superheroes lose teeth, especially before big battles. God, I loved that woman. When she finally walked down that aisle, barefoot, the crowd stood. Not because she looked perfect, though she did, but because she had fought her way there. From hospital shifts and mop buckets, from betrayal and custody battles, from holding her babies alone in the dark, to holding my hand in the light. When she reached me, I whispered, "Are you ready?" She squeezed my fingers. Born ready. We said our vows under sunset skies. Our kids stood as our groomsmen and flower boys. No orchestra, no designer chapel, just love, just survival, just us. But the night wasn't over. As we danced under the fairy lights strung between the palm trees, my phone buzzed. A text. No number. "You should have listened. This isn't over." And for the first time since Franklin's arrest, I wondered, who else wanted this family torn apart? They say your past dies when you build something new. They're wrong. Sometimes it just changes its name and waits. It was 2 weeks after the wedding. We were finally settling into a new rhythm. School drop-offs, family dinners, even Sunday pancakes, with Micah burning his half on purpose just to test the smoke alarm. But I couldn't shake the message. You should have listened. This isn't over. At first, I thought it was Franklin again. Maybe he had allies on the outside. But he'd been moved to a high-security wing and stripped of communication rights. And then the attack started. Not physical, digital. First, our new home security system glitched. Eliana got locked inside with the boys while I was out. Second, an anonymous complaint was filed to Child Services accusing us of neglect. The case was dropped within 24 hours, but not before 2 social workers came to our door. Micah cried for hours after they left. And then came the fire. Someone tried to set the storage shed behind the house ablaze. A neighbor caught it in time. The police found accelerants and a SIM card. The number traced back to a name I hadn't heard in over a decade. Monica Thorne. Back then, Monica was complicated. She worked with me during the early years of Ada Bio. We were young, ambitious, reckless. We dated briefly until she found out about Eliana. She didn't take it well. She called Eliana a distraction, unworthy, even a liability. I broke it off. She left the company, disappeared. Now she was back, with access, with resentment, and clearly with a plan. I confronted her at her new office. Sleek, modern. Inside a rival firm I hadn't realized she'd joined. "You're threatening my family," I said through gritted teeth. She sipped her coffee like we were catching up at brunch. "I'm protecting you," she said sweetly, "from yourself. You're insane." "No," she said. "I'm just disappointed. You had the world at your feet, and you threw it away for a woman who scrubbed floors. Get help. You'll see," she said as I walked away. "When it all comes crashing down, I'll still be standing." That night, I sat on the edge of our bed and told Eliana everything. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just nodded, wrapped her arms around me, and whispered, "Let's finish this." The next morning, we filed a restraining order, launched a private investigation, and dug through everything Monica had touched, including a hidden holding company that had been siphoning money from my firm for months. She was trying to bankrupt me, and she nearly did, until Eliana stepped in. She rallied the team I once thought too loyal to turn. She showed them the truth, the receipts, the fraud. She stood in the boardroom and gave a speech that stunned even me. "You can't destroy what we've rebuilt in love. Not with fear. Not with secrets. Not with shame." They voted unanimously to remove Monica's influence. By the time we got home that night, the boys had drawn a picture of us. Stick figures holding hands beneath the words, "Real Family." But there was one more surprise waiting. An envelope. No return address. Inside, a birth certificate. Micah's. And next to father. Someone had written in ink, Franklin Mendez. It rained the morning I stood in front of the mirror, buttoning my white linen shirt. Not the kind of rain that ruins days, the kind that washes everything clean. The house was quiet. Too quiet. Not because it was empty, but because it was full in a different way now. Full of healing. Full of tension that had finally exhaled. Mama was in her room humming softly, brushing her hair the way she used to when I was a boy. Zuri and the twins were in the kitchen, eating pancakes and arguing over who got the bigger piece. Adana was writing in her journal on the patio, barefoot, sipping tea. And Elijah, he was back. He returned at sunrise, no warning, no drama. Just walked in through the gate like he'd never left. Said he missed his daughter. Said he missed me too. Now all of us were here, under one roof. Not perfect, not polished, but present. And that morning I made a choice. I walked into the formal sitting room and gathered everyone. Mama, Adana, Elijah, the kids. I looked each of them in the eye and said, "No more secrets." Then I pulled the envelope out of my pocket. Micah's birth certificate. The one with Franklin's name typed in cold black letters. I laid it on the table. Eliana flinched. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I swear I didn't." "I believe you." Silence stretched, taut and aching. Micah stood in the doorway holding a sketchbook, watching. He stepped forward and looked at the paper, then looked at me. "You're still my dad, right?" he asked. I dropped to my knees, pulled him into my arms and said, "Forever." Later that week, I officially adopted all 3 boys. No media, no press, just us, a judge, and a quiet corner of the courthouse. Eliana took my name too. She didn't cry. But when the judge said, "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Duka," she squeezed my hand so tight I thought my fingers would crack. I didn't let go. A year later, Elijah started his own real estate firm, backed by my funding, his vision, and Adana's marketing genius. Mama retired. We bought her a house with a garden she can't stop bragging about. And Micah? He gave a speech at school about what makes a man a father. The teacher cried. So did I. There's a photo in our hallway now. Me, Eliana, the boys, and Mama, all laughing in the middle of a storm. We were soaked. The power had gone out. The pancakes were half burned. But we were together. That's the house we built. Brick by brick. Scar by scar. Love by love.